This is the Seahawkers Podcast, episode 359. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me, my good buddy, he's back, Montana Seahawker Adam Emmert.
Well, that was an interesting, what would you call it? Tuesday night thing? Would you call it, you can't call it a sporting event because that implies actual competition. So I'm going to go with exhibition. That was an interesting Tuesday night exhibition we were all allowed to put on for the Los Angeles Rams fans in their stadium.
Yeah, it almost wasn't allowed, right? It was a last minute.
No. It was never even close to almost not being allowed. Like, that was made perfectly clear earlier on in the week or late last week. So that was never a possibility that the Rams would just forfeit the game as they were told they would have to do at the beginning of the season if they're irresponsible with COVID protocols. But that's fine. I mean, that's fine. I mean, obviously we gotta be flexible with the rules for at least one of the 32 teams in the league. And if we're gonna choose one, let's make sure it's the second largest media market in the nation that just moved there, that has billions of dollars wrapped up into a giant stadium that is hosting the Super Bowl this year. I mean, it really, when you think about it, there's no way it could fail there. Like, it just can't fail there. We know that now. And here we are today. And I don't want to sit and harp on this entire podcast, but that was certainly half of the problem. The other half was a large part due to the Seahawks play and some coaching decisions and things of that nature that were in our control to a degree. I mean, how close the score was within our control, I guess. The outcome, not so much. But yeah, there's a lot of things that went into that Tuesday night WWE, exhibition that we saw out there.
I don't know where to start with that, man, because gosh, the way that this all happened, for this to be moved till Tuesday, and maybe we should start there because that was something that happened late in the week. You mentioned it. It was something that the NFL they said they weren't going to do. Now, things changed a little bit in terms of the spread of the virus.
The Rams tested positive. That's what changed.
The Rams had, 20 plus players testing positive. And you mentioned that it, being irresponsible. And I don't know if they were. I have a hard time saying for sure. Now, the Seahawks have been generally very responsible, and even they had probably they absolutely had their worst outbreak. Tyler Lockett goes down. Yep. He's not able to make it. Brandon Shell, DJ Reed, they end up with multiple starting players on the COVID list as a result of the game getting pushed back. And
5 or 6, not 20. 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Not 20. And they were less than that if they would have played on the designated day. So then there's that too.
There's that too. And which the biggest problem, I wish Pete wouldn't have been so diplomatic about it, because they teed it up for him after the game and saying, did the game being moved put you at a disadvantage? Well, no, we weren't at a disadvantage, but they got players who weren't going to play and they got them on the field, and so they're healthy. And there were a couple of our guys that weren't able to play because of it. But no, definitely not at a disadvantage from moving the game. Okay, Pete.
Yeah, it's tough. And he's in a tough position. I mean, Russ kind of danced around it himself, whether that was the calls or this moving of the game. And they're doing their best to try to voice some displeasure without getting fined out the yin-yang. Because, the league isn't going to have an ounce of it. Carlos Dunlap actually went the furthest in terms of kind of stating his displeasure regarding the way that things worked out. The one thing that you have to ask yourself is like, well, okay, so was it really that big of a deal that all these Rams players got back? Well, maybe not each and every one of them, but boy, it sure was a big deal that Jalen Ramsey was there, wasn't it? He made 2 gigantic plays throughout the game, whether that was the ball that was underthrown to DK, the deep one, that honestly, Ramsey still made a nice play to get a hand on it. It was that close. It was within inches. I'm not sure that most corners make that play. And then the first one being early in the first half on a 3rd down on a corner route, Russ goes for DK and Ramsey lays out and stretches out and barely gets a fingertip on it, breaks it up. Those are 2 gigantic plays in the game. And he was allowed to make those plays because the NFL changed all of its rules, all of its standards, went and double talked on everything that it said at the beginning of the season to be sure that the LA Rams didn't have to forfeit a game and have their best players on the field. They made sure of that.
I didn't even want them to forfeit. I did not want.
Oh, I did.
The team. No, I absolutely didn't, because, well, one thing that we found out is that nobody gets paid. Even the Seahawks players, if the game didn't happen, they weren't going to get paid. And that was a really weird move by the Players Association to make that even part of the deal. And I think that's why they were on board with the moving of the games, because, well, for one, the guy who is the president of the NFLPA, he would have been one of the ones missing a check, and his team with the Browns would have forfeited. So they had motivation, the Players Association did, to change this as well. You saw a lot of different players upset about it. I didn't want them to have to forfeit the game. I just wanted them to have to find enough players in the short amount of time to be able to field the team and play the game on Sunday.
Look, here's the thing. They probably would have never had to forfeit it because they would have just trotted out some dudes off of the street, and that would have been fine. I mean, but if you think
they made the Broncos play with a wide receiver at quarterback last year. Now, part of the reason they did that was because they violated the protocols. And again, I don't know if the Rams, if they were any kind of irresponsible in terms of how they handle things.
You would never find out about it.
Well, and that's part of the problem too, right? You're never going to find out.
No, definitely not when it comes to the squeaky clean Rams. I mean, I don't even know how else to put it. Like the amount of which the Rams are in bed with the NFL, front office in New York is just, it's sickening. It's sickening. And I can promise you, if it was just the Browns who came up with all these positive tests, they would have been forfeiting or playing with a wide receiver or quarterback. They would have been doing that. This was too big of an opportunity to put the Rams behind the eight ball. They had an opportunity to, tie up the cards for first place in the NFC West, improve their seeding. The league desperately wants them there in the Super Bowl this year. It is so desperate.
The thing is, though, if they were that desperate, I feel like there would have been more evidence of trying to make that happen.
How much more do you need, Brandon?
I think
did you watch that game on Tuesday?
I did watch the game, yes, and there was a lot of, and I think everything.
I'm sorry, I called it a game again. Did you see that sporting thing that went on?
The thing is, though, the Seahawks, they did not play great. Russell Wilson did not play great. So again, you can't put everything on the NFL. You can't put everything on the refs. And Ethan with an email here, I think, encapsulates how a lot of Seahawks fans feel after this, saying, where do I even start? The NFL decided the winner of this game Friday. I don't like to complain about refs, but they were horrendous. Russ is a shell of himself, even though it pains me to say it. Bobby is slowing down. We have no future, and we are absolutely, completely catfished. Thank you guys for being my sports therapist and letting me get it all out. Catfish! The NFL Golden Boy Rams. Catfish! That cocky piece of catfish! Ramsey. Catfish! Frat Boy McVay. And most of all, catfish! The NFL. Happy holidays and go Hawks. From Ethan.
Go Hawks, Ethan. So a few things with that. Yes, it does feel like this was a bit of a predetermined game. Now, also, yes, I mean, Russ didn't play his best game.
Not only not his best, the worst graded game per PFF in his career.
Were they drunk?
It was
Did they not watch that performance in Green Bay like 2-3 years back where he threw like 7 picks?
That was the worst. Yes, that was the worst.
Okay, I was going to say, there's no way. This wasn't even near the closest to the worst performance this season.
Yeah, I suppose that, it was PFF grade. Worst PFF
Apparently,
grade
a lot of
career.
people think Russ played a lot worse than I do. I think he played about a C+, B-.
It was a D. It was a bad game.
It was a D? How do you figure it was a D?
Because he underthrew all these big throws. He underthrew the pass to Metcalf. He underthrew another pass to Eskridge in a big moment.
Do you know how far that ball had to travel to get to DK and Eskridge in both those situations?
Yeah, and normally he doesn't underthrow those. And he underthrew.
No, in fact, normally he does underthrow them. This is something he's been doing his entire career, where he would underthrow it and the receiver would go up and get it, whether that was Dougie Fresh with his crazy vertical, whether it's DK with his big body. Tyler goes up and he high points these balls all the time. It's not often that he drops it right in the bucket. I know that every time you hear on Monday Night Football, Collinsworth have a catfish and chortle as he drops one from the sky and he talks about moonballs for the next 3 weeks. More times than not, he lofts it up and lets his guy make a play. This is not abnormal for the way that he throws the deep ball. It's just not.
And he underthrew that 4th down pass to DJ Dallas.
Okay, with the free rusher in his catfish and mug, and he drew it, and he should have drawn a penalty there. I think that the demise of Russell Wilson is overly exaggerated. I really do.
I agree with that too, but it doesn't change that he needed to get that pass out ahead of DK. DK was wide open, and you make that pass. You get a little bit. You could have thrown it 5 yards beyond where he threw it to Metcalf.
No, he couldn't. The safety would have been there.
I don't think so.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's no way that
not if you throw it on a rope.
And when you throw it on a rope, then you turn into Josh Allen throwing deep, which it's either dead ass on the money or you have zero shot. That's the beauty of putting the air under the ball. Look, I don't kill Russ on that throw to DK. It was pretty freaking close. And Ramsey made a nice play. He made a nice play to recover on that.
Yeah, and Russ generally makes those throws, and
he did. He made the throw. Them. Ramsey made a great play. He had more drops on him than I thought. I mean, Eskridge, that should have been a catch, but the DB again made a really nice play.
Yeah,
knocking the ball out of there. That's just freaking good defense. I mean, most of these DK had a drop on a 3rd down where. It was sure it was a smidgen high, but you got to catch that. I mean, that wasn't even in the, well, if you can touch it, you can catch it. It hit him in the freaking hands just above eye level. Like, he's got to catch that. Like, I just think that Russ, for the most part, was decisive and was dealing pretty well. But just about 1 in every 4 plays, he'd sit there and pat the ball and pat the ball and pat the ball and end up taking a big negative play. That's where I think the actual criticism could come in for him. But when you're missing one of your best receivers and they're allowed to get all their DBs back, it's going to be a tough road to hoe.
They had their opportunities in this game for sure.
Yeah, sure. I agree. And I mean, I think the argument of, well, it's all the refs in the NFL or it's all the Seahawks just suck. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. Like, it could be a little column A, a little column B.
I don't know if I like you giving all this credit to the Rams defense, apparently, with by far the Seahawks should be the better team, always against the Rams. And I don't like giving credit to the Rams defense, giving credit to Cooper Kupp, who we had to hear his name 1,500 times. Cooper Kupp, Cooper Kupp, Cooper Kupp.
God.
Cooper Kupp.
And that's on the Seahawks. How many games now has it been this year when it's clear they've got one offensive weapon that will just eat your ass alive, and we don't double them? And in this game, ever.
I won't say they didn't double him ever. I thought early on in the game it seemed like they had an answer for him. It was late in the game that he had that one crazy deep pass over the middle where they had he was covered. They have 4 guys over the middle there, and he just goes up and gets it, and the defense just decides not to tackle him. The tackling by the defense in the second half, you had the run by Sony Michel where...
that should have never happened, but okay. Yeah, blame him for the missed tackle.
Yeah, that should have never happened because of another call that was probably the most critical call of the game on 3rd down where they call... Was it Bless Austin? Where they call him for holding?
On a 3rd and 12.
3rd and 12, the Seahawks get the stop.
Deep... With the Rams deep in their own end.
Yeah. And they call that a holding. Now, see, when you say that, the NFL is fixing this, I think that that's just more evidence of incompetent officials, like throwing flags when they don't need to.
I 100% disagree, and this is why. So the 2 most rigged games I've ever felt a part of watching was the Super Bowl against the Steelers and the refs.
Sure.
And then this game. And the difference being what makes this one number one is, first off, the moves by the NFL before the game was even played.
Yeah.
And then secondly, it felt like at the end of that game with the Super Bowl to Steelers that most of those were guys in a big game over their skis making calls that they shouldn't have. That felt more incompetence than a planned thing. This felt so unbelievably orchestrated in terms of give them every benefit of the doubt humanly possible is what freaking Junior Big Guns Hockley was told before this game. I'm sure he was. Because think about it, and just there's a bunch of little things that led up to that 3rd and 12 call too. For example, the Rams have delay a game while they're driving
right.
down the field. They throw the flag, they call the penalty, and then Sean walks up to him and goes, "Hey, I totally called timeout."
Oh, okay.
Well, since you said so, okay, that sounds great. And then they pick up the flag. When in the history of the league have you ever seen that before? Where the head coach literally walks up to the ref and says, "Oh yeah, so take my word for it. I totally called timeout, and you just didn't see me." Well, in the past, if they didn't see it, they both say, "Well, tough titties, it's still delay a game." Out of all the bad calls, the one on Bless Austin would be the one that I could understand the incompetence argument for the most because of the way that Kupp did that swim move, and even though Austin's hands went up and he didn't hold, like it just, I could see that in real time to a degree. But when the right side of the Rams line holds every catfishing play, or at the beginning of the game when Amadi goes out and tries to shut down either a perimeter run or something along those lines and goes to make the tackle, and they grab him by the left arm and he's spinning around while they're holding him by the arm so he can't make the freaking tackle, and they don't call a hold. I mean, it just is on and on and on in this game. And I am not one to blame refs, because I think if you do it all the time, then you have no credibility when it's actual time to complain about it. This was a fix. And all the bad play the Seahawks had throughout the game, even if all those calls had gone right, I'm not telling you that they would have won, but at least we would have known if they could have or not. We don't even know that. And on top of all of that, this was to end our season effectively. You don't think that New York is excited to end our season a little early? Maybe make Russell be like, guess I'll never be able to win here because the league is against Seattle too. I should move to say, I don't know, New York or Chicago, which happen to be the first and third largest markets in the nation. Do you think the NFL has a vested interest in that? I sure think they do.
Man, the conspiracy runs deep.
It's not a conspiracy, though. I can't even call it a conspiracy.
I want to be on board with it.
You can't call it a conspiracy.
I totally want to be on board with this.
You can't. Don't even put on your tinfoil hat. It's not a conspiracy, because to have a conspiracy, you have to have a modicum of an attempt to cover it up. This is just being rubbed right in our catfishing noses.
Gosh, I really want it to be true, but because it would be fun.
What part of that wasn't true? It's all blatantly obvious. It's all right there. Like, none of that is made up.
What reason does the NFL have?
Money.
The Seahawks were in two of the most watched Super Bowls in history. They won one of them by blowing out the Broncos, and they should have won the next one. And there was no officiating issues that kept that you can really point to and say where it felt rigged. Not like the first Super Bowl. That absolutely that one. I will agree with you though in terms of feeling like it was rigged. It's this and the Super Bowl, and those are the two that stand out to me. But I can't see why it would make that big of a difference if the Seahawks were to win this game and the Rams to lose, because the Rams still get in the playoffs. Maybe they don't get a first round bye. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's because now they have the opportunity to overtake the Cardinals. But
ding! It's all about the money, Lebowski. And don't tell me that you don't think that the league would make a lot more money off of having Russell Wilson in New York than in Seattle. We all know that they would.
Okay, but then why not make Russ look good and make him look desirable for a trade? At this point, Who's trading for us?
Why would you want the Giants, if you are the league office, to have to give up a crap ton to procure Russell Wilson? Wouldn't you rather him look bad so you don't have to give up much so then the team can build around him a little bit more?
He's not going to New York. It's not happening.
Buckle up, dude. It's either there or Chicago. I'm telling you right now, the fix is already in.
You think the league is fixing player transactions?
I think that they're definitely going to motivate certain players in teams to make deals that make sense for the league's bottom line. Yes, I do.
Nope, can't go there. I can't go there.
Look, before this game, Brandon. Before this game, I would never have thought that. This was just so disgustingly blatant. I mean, if out of all of it, dude, that 4th and 6, no PI. I mean, really?
The hard time that I have with that is that I've kind of been banging the table on, and originally I mentioned earlier that I thought it was underthrown. I kind of have been banging the table on a lot of officiating calls where they end up throwing the flag in those situations where the quarterback could have made a better pass and it ends up going into the back of a defensive back and essentially rewarding underthrown footballs. And so that's why I have a problem with them not calling it, because they have consistently called that as a penalty throughout the year. Even a lot of times, so, the DB will get his head turned around at the last minute, but because the receiver has to jump through the defensive back, usually it's a defensive back, not in this case, I don't think. Yeah, I had a problem with that call for sure. And it was that piled on with all those other missed calls that they made that it felt rigged.
Okay, so tweet from Tony Dungy. Is Tony Dungy a conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat wearing, bombastic person that says things to get ratings?
No, you will not find everybody looked at that call and said, yes, that should have been pass interference.
Okay.
I haven't found anybody that said that it
This is Tony Dungy's tweet. This is Tony Dungy's tweet. I'm sorry, but the deep officiating in the Seahawks Rams game has been horrendous. Big game-changing calls on holding and pass interference that have not even been close to being right. Hard to imagine officials being that far off.
Sure. Yeah.
Hard to imagine. That's he's a guy. Here's a guy that still makes his money via the league being a commentator. That's as close as you can get to stepping to the line and being like, yeah, that was horse crap. That was horse crap.
Yeah, that call was crap. The other calls were too.
And there's no defense for it, Brandon. There's not one.
The defense is that officiating calls this season have been horrendous. There have been more terrible calls this season than I can remember there being terrible calls in any season.
I think most of those had to do with the taunting calls.
Yeah.
I think that's what most people are complaining about with a new rule. And that seemed to go away halfway through the season.
It was after Cassius Marsh flexed on the sideline.
Yeah. And everybody went in the wrong direction. Yeah.
What are you doing?
I don't think that this season stands out as being more poorly officiated than any other
some of the hits on the quarterback this year, some of the pass interference calls. That's how it's been for the last 5
years, dude.
Yeah, I feel like it's been worse this year.
I don't. It seems about the same to me, which is generally trash, but it all stinks so bad.
The crackback block calls this year.
Whew.
Some of those have been.
There's been some bad ones.
Wild.
I mean, again, there was a couple years there where the calls on catches were just egregious, right?
Oh, yeah.
It just kind of changes a little bit here and there. But, I mean, to see it so one-sided in the most crucial of moments. Now, not every penalty that the Seahawks committed was wrongly called. I mean, I see a lot of people pointing towards the running into the punter call on Alton Robinson. And did he hit his leg hard? No. Did he run into his leg? Yeah.
And it led to 3 points. That was an easy call for them to make.
They have every right to call that. I can't point to that one and be like, oh, geez, that was in the bag.
You're telling me, though, that they couldn't have found a way to call some kind of ticky-tack penalty, though, on like a Quandre Diggs interception or Jordan Brooks when he stopped Kupp on that fourth down play? I feel like there were other opportunities early where they could have really made a statement. Yeah.
If you are trying to make sure that the game goes a certain direction, do you do that early or you do that late?
You felt like they made it that way anyway. So what I'm saying is they had more than enough opportunities.
They surely did. They exercised them. They did. I will not be surprised. And I swear to God, this is how I feel in my heart, that in 10 to 15 years, that we're looking at Hockey League Jr. being strung up as the Tim Donaghy of the NFL.
Ooh.
And I genuinely believe that. Maybe it wasn't the whole league that was in cahoots. Maybe he had a bet on the spread here and he couldn't have the score be that close. I mean, I don't know. There's just something nefarious there. And what a fitting way for the season to finally die.
I wasn't ready for it to finally die. The Seahawks, they have their first losing season. In fact, this is going to be because the 49ers are probably going to beat the Texans. The Seahawks are going to finish in last place in the NFC West for the first time since 1976.
Right.
And
when they were originally in the NFC West.
And the first time finishing last in either the AFC or NFC West since 2000.
Yeah.
Since 2000.
And they
21 years ago.
And they won't finish last with like 3 wins either. So it's not like they stunk it up the entire. I mean, they kind of stunk it up the entire year, but It's not like they were one of the dumpster fire teams. They were definitely one of the bad teams all year. But when you look at it too, I mean, how much of the league is that in between, 8 wins and 6 wins right now? 3/4 of the league?
It's insane.
There's so many small opportunities that could have gone one way or the other just to shift this 2 games.
And so that's why, just to put a pin in the rigging, the feeling rig type thing, you're saying that you are convinced the Rams are going to finish with the NFC West title.
I am convinced that they're going to be given every favorable opportunity the league can get away with to win the NFC West and have the 1 seed.
Okay, I'm going to be watching for it.
Since we're on the catfish wagon today and kind of letting it all out. Catfish Aaron Donald. Catfish him forever. I am so sick of Aaron Donald. Like, he's going to the Hall of Fame just based on what he does to the Seahawks. He ruined our season early in the season.
He's not going to the Hall of Fame just based on what he has done to the Seahawks, though.
Might as well.
No, that title goes to Chandler Jones when he goes to the Hall of Fame.
Maybe they'll enshrine both of them on the same recruiting class, or same induction class. Aaron Donald's actually good, though, where Chandler Jones is, whoever he is.
That's what I mean. Aaron Donald is a legit Hall of Famer. You could take out all of his Seahawks games and he would be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I'd be borderline, though. Just the Seahawks stuff.
Look, it's helped him. He should get, Russell Wilson should get a thank you from Aaron Donald when he gives his Hall of Fame acceptance speech.
Oh, absolutely. Von Miller already given out the thanks to Russell in his press conference, saying thanks for all the sacks, basically. That he's given him throughout his career. And I just wanted to look at that chicken farmer and say, yeah, well, how about this ring? Okay. Because that's last time that we played a big game against you, buddy, you ended up going home.
Yeah. Did he legit say that?
Oh, yeah. He looked right at the camera, the big smile. I was like, oh, no, Russ is my boy.
Uh-huh.
But thanks a lot, Russ. And catfish the Broncos forever, too, for trading him there. Like, I hope they have a Von Miller curse for the next 10 years.
They deserve it.
They do deserve it. I let Jared know that they're officially cursed.
Good.
And then the Seahawks are just stupid. The Seahawks are just stupid throughout this game.
Running a screen toward Aaron Donald's way on 3rd and 7. That seems smart.
The stretch run on 3rd and 6.
3rd and 6. Oh, to Penny. And I was ready. I was kind of looking forward to talking with you after that Houston game because I just wanted to hype up Penny a little bit and say, yes, it was the Houston Texans that he ran all over the top of, but he looked like a different back the way he was showing some power and effort and finishing his runs. It was something that we hadn't seen from Penny necessarily. Well, because obviously he has to be on the field for us to see it. So I was ready to give him credit, and then, against the Rams, then we kind of see the normal Rashad Penny. Now, I thought he did finish some of his runs nicely against the Rams, but
not really. I don't think he finished any run particularly well. He's really good at bursting through a hole, and if there's no contact, it's 8-9 yards every time.
Oh yeah,
like if you can get him a clean hole, he's a 9 yards an attempt runner, pretty easy. Unfortunately, when you talk about him finishing runs, and I did, go back and watch highlights of the Texans game and all that, and watch this game. He is not a finisher of runs, and he's not a great. Not usually,
no. And the Texans game was the one example, but it was the Texans, so I can't even point to that now as saying that it's any different. But he looked different against the Texans. Is what I'm saying.
And we had some real success running between the tackles, right? Running inside.
Yes, and then so on 3rd and 6, if you're going to run the football, why are you stretching out to the outside if you're already deciding that you're going to go for it on 4th down? Mm-hmm. Why are you not running up the middle and getting some positive yardage? The point is to give yourself an even shorter 4th and short. And if you stretch it to the outside, you have the ability to turn the corner and get around the edge, but there's also that very real possibility that one of your dudes is going to miss a block and you end up taking a loss. That happened against Houston, where they took a big loss and pushed them out of field goal range, I think I'm remembering that right. And here it happened where they didn't get any yards.
I like the call of a run in that situation because in my mind, yes, it was 4 down territory. So even if we pick up just 2 or 3, I mean, that makes it, 4th and 3. That's
because
great.
they were
cramming it right down their throat
from the start of the second half.
Yep. And instead of running between the tackles to whichever side Aaron Donald wasn't, which, Russell can audible to that when he's at the line. They did that and then left up the 4th and 6 that the refs decided that, we just didn't deserve. So that went away. But one of the things that were really frustrating for me was they start running the ball, like you said, in the 3rd quarter, right? Score the touchdown right after coming out of half.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, they can't stop us just pounding the football. And so then you see subsequent drives, and instead of now taking that success that you've had running it up the middle and starting to run play action and run boots and run fly sweep and read option and all the different things that can work off of this run game that you've now suddenly found success with, that you now suddenly have them respecting, we start going empty. We start, just doing basic run, empty on 3rd and 6. Basic run, empty on 3rd and 6. And
it was so frustrating.
The most frustrating part about that is Russ off of play action is maybe the greatest of all time in quarterback history. His numbers are astronomical when he's playing off of play action. When he's playing from empty, he's kind of an Andy Dalton. So, why are we in empty all the time or motioning a guy out when you're using the run game, you're being effective, and then you don't use the threat of it to set your quarterback up to do the thing that he's best at?
It was a big whiff. It was that second drive. After they get the touchdown drive, then the Rams came back, and it was a big pass to Kupp. Then nobody decides to tackle Sony Michel. Then Kupp gets into the end zone. But they get the ball back, and they go 3 straight runs. They're having success, and the Rams, and they finally go on defense, and they say, well, screw this. We're not going to allow them to run on us anymore. They packed the box with, it looked like almost the entire team. It was 2nd and 6. And I'm thinking, okay, this is the opportunity where you finally get them in position to where you have them where you want them, and you go play action. And they ran it to Dallas, and he gets 2 yards because they have 10 guys in the box.
Sure, but it's still set up a 3rd and 4.
Oh, sure.
I mean, that's just a very manageable down
deep
distance
pass to Eskridge. So, it was a pass that generally you see, Tyler Lockett make that catch. But it was that opportunity that it was there, that you had that you could have gone play action in that moment, and it felt like, you had set it up perfectly for that moment.
You have Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, and Von Miller, who I think Von Miller's actually good. And Aaron Donald's pretty good. I mean, Leonard Floyd's whoever he is.
He's good against Seattle.
Why is it that they have Russ sitting there in the pocket like a sitting duck for the entire game? How come there's no boots or just sliding the pocket one direction or the other? Why not get him on the perimeter even just a little bit? I understand they're playing zone the entire game, so running it with Russ is going to be a little bit harder because all the defenders are looking at the quarterback rather than playing man. So you might not pick, but why not give him the opportunity? Like to where if they vacate a zone, he could actually pick up a few extra yards with his legs.
Or get the defense all rolling to one direction and they do that kind of misdirection underneath throw to where, I mean, the Rams do that all the time. They did it all the time with Jared Goff, at least.
Yeah.
And those elements, and that's why I'm kind of over Shane Waldron as the OC. I feel like I should have seen something by now that I would say that I feel like it's worth continuing.
That's an interesting statement. I've got two minds on it. One being, yes, I didn't see them build a sequence of plays one off of another based off of the whole premise that the McVay offense has, right? We show you 2 or 3 things, but then we run 50 things out of it. Like there wasn't a lot of creativity in terms of the sequencing of plays, one setting up the next, right? And even when they had the opportunity to, they chose not to do it. So that would be the part of the Waldron thing where I'm like, yeah, man, like what the hell? My other half of me thinks, okay, so there have now been 3 offensive coordinators. The offense looks how it looks. It's not demonstrably different from one coordinator to the next. Does that seem like a coordinator problem to you? Or does that seem more like either a quarterback problem or a head coach problem?
I think that with the head coach and with the quarterback, you can still, as a coordinator, you have the freedom to call plays that show that kind of sequencing that you're talking about. And so that's why it leads me to the coordinator.
Maybe. And that's the thing. I mean, this season's been a death by 1,000 cuts. At different points throughout the entire season, you can point at different coaches, different personnel, different schemes, different officiating events, all the way down the line. And there's not one that's really more egregious than the next. I mean, Brett Coleman did an amazing breakdown of the Seahawks after the Texans game.
Yeah.
And he starts it out with, well, the Seahawks are weird again. And it's 100% true. If you do end up talking to him again shortly, Brandon, just let him know that I was a huge fan of that breakdown because I think he did about as good a job as he can. The blame pie is sliced into 14 different slices.
Right. And the weird thing is that part of the blame pie, like the credit that you can give to Pete Carroll is that the team, despite all of its issues, they haven't quit.
And the defense looks legit.
And the defense does look legit, even with all of the injuries. I mean, even if you would have told me that Odell Beckham Jr. was going to finish with 1 catch in this Rams game, and you were going to have another one of your corners go down in the middle of the game, and it was going to be, what, Bless Austin and...
Reed.
Yeah, John Reed. Not even the good Reed. But Bless Austin and John Reed were going to be the guys that, held it down.
And Ryan Neal instead of Jamal.
I wouldn't have believed it.
So, yeah, I mean, there's credit to give to Pete, right? I mean, the defense plays hard. They look legit. And the team has stayed together. And they're playing hard. All that stuff. And then you look at it and you go, God, there's some game management decisions that are just beyond head scratching, challenges that aren't thrown that should and shouldn't, vice versa.
Yeah.
I don't know how to grade Pete completely at the end of this season. I mean, he loses his starting quarterback for 4 weeks, de facto 7 weeks, because, he couldn't really throw the ball the right way for another 3 weeks after return.
I don't think even giving Pete a grade for the season does you anything. It's more of a pass-fail thing to me is do you want Pete to continue on or don't you?
It's a great question. I mean, there are a few ways it could work out this offseason. I mean, and they're all fairly obvious, but I think the one thing that you won't see is Pete back, Russ gone. I think that's the one outcome that is a 0% chance.
That makes sense to me. It's more likely to me that you see both back or both gone.
Yeah, it's either Russ without Pete, they're both back, or they're both gone.
Yeah, that feels more likely.
And I mean, they're going to run the bus over somebody this offseason. There's no doubt about it. And we're going to find out. We're going to find out about Russ and how much he craves a different market and all of that. I don't know. I don't know what we do, because at the end of the day, I mean, you look at this team and the talent that's on it and how close they've been in like the majority of these games too. I mean, this should be a 10-win team, 11-win team.
Philosophically, in terms of the way it was managed for the season, offensively especially, it finally bit him this year, where Pete's philosophy of trying to keep it close until the fourth quarter, where whatever it was, the magic there that always happened when Russell Wilson had the ball with the fourth quarter and was able to make it happen, I can point to so many games where they lost to where that wasn't there. And whether the injury has a part to do with it, whether or not, even before the injury, their inability to close out games, their inability to be aggressive in the first half of games. But that's probably one of those things that's always been there. But I guess I point more toward that, that fourth quarter magic, expecting it to happen and it not being there.
So one question is, do you want Pete back or not because of that philosophy, right? Second question is, do you want Russ back or not? Because we're now looking at a season and a half here of him not being able to beat zone coverage. He can't do it.
Yeah.
He does not have the anticipatory throws right now of guys crossing windows and hitting them.
And that's why I think that leads me more toward coaching than ability with Russ, because he has the ability. I know he has the ability, the capability to make those throws into tight windows. It's that Pete is so adverse to turnovers. He doesn't want him to do it. And a new coach that has a more aggressive philosophy offensively, I think we see a little bit different Russ.
I think that would be needed to get the best out of him, because yes, he does look like, I mean, shoot, Brittany showed up in the fourth quarter. She came home from her trip.
Yeah.
The game's on and she's looking and she's watching one of those plays where Russ holds it for like 49 seconds. And she looks at me and she's like, so when did he start doing this hold on to the ball forever thing?
Yeah.
Like, she knows nothing about football and can tell that, that he was hesitant. That was the word she used, hesitant. Why is he so hesitant to throw the football? Because you can see him kind of go, no, like, and just, okay, finally. And then just chuck it up out of desperation because now somebody's, got him by the waist. I don't know where that comes from. Maybe that does come from Pete.
Go to that throw where Cooper scores the touchdown over the middle. Yeah. And Stafford's throwing it. There's 4 Seahawks defenders that are in the middle of the field. Cup elevates, catches the ball, scores a touchdown. Russ doesn't throw that pass.
Nope. Not into that window. Where when Stafford begins to release the football, Cup is just starting to cross the face of the defender and run the post. And yeah, you just don't see that out of Russ. Either he's seeing it wide open and then throwing, which, I mean, a lot of these, like you talked about being, quote, underthrown. I don't know that they're so much underthrown. I just think they were late.
Okay. Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I just think they were late. And we've seen that a ton this year out of him. So at the end of the day, do you want Russ back?
I do.
The next question is, do you want Schneider back? Is that the issue? So, I mean, we go down all these roads, right?
We've got all offseason to talk about these. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at this point of the year, with this season being, relatively over, I don't have any answers, and I'm not sure exactly where I'd want to go. If Chicago called you tomorrow and said, Fields a first in 2 seconds, are you doing it?
Here's the thing. Any deal where you would probably say yes to, it's not going to happen because other teams around the league are watching Russ play just like we are. So if we're starting to get to the point to where we're saying, oh, well, maybe Russ gets traded, or maybe I'd be okay with it, you're not going to get the type of package that would have been there a year ago.
Everybody's talking Russ and 3 firsts. That wasn't Russ and 3 firsts. What if it was, because I think it's going to take either an established young quarterback or just a potential young quarterback, another first, and then from there, I don't know. But the idea of 3 firsts, I don't think that's happening.
I give it about a 1% chance of finding that deal out there that could be made. I don't think it's out there. A young quarterback and a first-round pick. That would be, I don't think anybody would do it.
I think there's a lot of teams that would do it. I bet you the Broncos would do it tomorrow.
They don't have the young quarterback that you would want.
Not necessarily, but maybe it's 2 firsts then for them. You know what I mean? Like a high one this year, obviously, and then whatever the next year's one is.
I don't want to do it if a quarterback's not involved.
It gets tough. Yeah. I mean, to me, as I sat and thought about it, like the Bears, that situation made the most sense to me because they're dumb enough to give up the farm on stuff. It's the 3rd biggest media market. Away you go.
Maybe
that defense is supposedly good.
Maybe.
Well, that's another thing too, to the Bears part. Like somebody had mentioned on the Ring of Honor page, I talked about how much I disliked the rigging and, well, they play the Bears next week. So who do you think they're rooting for in that game? Do you think they're going to have an interest? Yes, it's the Bears. Of course they will. Of course they will. If the Bears win that game, right? And Russ, they're going to show shots of Russ on the sideline, looking longingly at the other franchise that he could be with. It'll be just like when Russ was sitting at the Super Bowl last year and everybody references back how that was the moment and blah, bitty blue. They definitely want Russ to lose.
The Seahawks aren't losing to the Bears. It's not going to happen.
I wouldn't think so.
It's not going to happen.
Well, I don't know. I mean, is your name Roger Goodell? Because if it's not, then you can't determine those things.
So what excuse are you going to make then when the Seahawks beat the Bears and it appears that your whole theory of rigging is ruined because it didn't go deep enough into the Bears game to fix that outcome?
Oh, well, I mean, it's just what you do, like with all conspiracy theories. You just
move
take whatever thread of it. Well, they actually tried. They actually tried to rig it in that game, but they did call the penalty on them and it backed them up. But gosh, DK made a great play, and so they managed to overcome it. They actually tried to fix it.
Okay,
there's a way around everything.
Yeah, you know how this works.
Oh, absolutely.
JFK Jr.'s coming back. You just got to wait long enough.
Yep. Oh, 100%. There's no doubt about it. Him and Elvis will be having a party.
The window on Elvis is closed, Adam.
You don't believe?
Everybody's moved on. It's JFK Jr.
I don't know, man. Oh, it's just JFK Jr.?
Yeah.
Who did what in his entire life, by the way, except for just be a rich debutante?
I have no idea. I don't live in that world.
Yeah. A whole lot of nothing. I mean, I'm sad he crashed his plane and died, or didn't die, however you want to look at it. But yeah, I don't understand the obsession with JFK Jr. I don't understand the obsession with the Rams. I don't understand the obsession with the Cardinals that still is out there somehow. People are still excited about them.
I think people are over the Cardinals. They lost to the Lions this week. They got blown out by the Lions because the Cardinals... DeAndre Hopkins should be the NFL MVP. And people are going to start to recognize that over these final few weeks. Are we into NFC West watch? I feel like, did we preview the Bears game at all? What are we doing here?
Who cares about the Bears game? Like, genuinely, who cares? I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, these last few games, like, what is there to preview? It'll be a snooze fest. The league will like it better if the Bears win. Ta-da. There's your preview.
You know what I want to see, though? I would like to see, I don't know if I'd want to see it against the Bears. I just want to see Russ pull out a fourth quarter win. When was the last time we saw that? Have we seen that this year at all?
I don't think so, dude.
Yeah, it's not hard to pick out which games would have been the comeback victory because there's only 5. They've only won 5 times. Only 4 of those were with Russ.
There you go.
And we know that they dominated the 49ers both times, so that leaves 2 games. One was the Texans, which they dominated the whole time.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There you go.
0 comebacks.
That's all.
No stats for Russ this year.
Not yet, anyway. Not yet. I mean, he could pull one out, but they'll have to do things like not go away from Gerald Everett the entire second half of a game like they did this last one.
Yeah.
4 catches in the first half, looking good.
Well, one of those catches was a fluke.
Yeah, that's true. Wasn't aiming for him.
No, aiming for DK.
It was only about 20 yards off.
Yeah. Well, he got hit.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, kind of crazy that even worked as a catch.
Let's get this second half because I got ideas.
Okay, because I'm ready to feel less frustrated. I was very frustrated after this game.
That's about as bitter as I've felt after a football game, maybe ever.
Yeah. If it wouldn't have moved, I don't think I would have felt as bitter and frustrated as I did.
Yeah,
it would have just been another loss to the Rams.
The calls combined with the moving of the game
made it gross.
It just made it gross. It honestly shook my entire faith in the NFL being an actual sports organization. Like for the first time.
Let's get to the second half of the show. We are back. We are ready to move on. Let's move on to, are we talking NFC West? Have we covered that sufficiently? The Cardinals suck without DeAndre Hopkins. The 49ers, screw them. We hate the Rams. Should we do a deep dive on all the favorable calls that have gone the Rams' way throughout the season? That would require us to actually watch other Rams games that weren't the Seahawks games.
I don't need my eyeballs to light on fire. So I'd rather not have to watch that much Rams. And you know what? The last thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the conspiracy.
I thought we were over this.
No, I got one more. I'm scrolling through, post-game reactions and stuff, right? Because I just want to see what the national media has to say about that game,
Sure.
And one clip was Kurt Warner reacts to, Seahawks Rams, blah, 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 right? I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I click on it. And, well, Kurt Warner never appears in this video, okay? But it is from NFL Network, and it's Willie McGinnis and Mike Robb with whoever the gal who's hosting is. And it was a 10-minute long video. And I swear to God to you, 8.5 minutes was both of them on both knees praising the God that is before them in Cooper Kupp. And just, that's all they could talk about. You know how many times bad officiating was mentioned in that?
Probably
0 times.
Yeah, 0 times.
Read an article from CBS Sports on a recap of the game. You know what the bad officiating was mentioned? 0 times. Read an article from Bleacher Report, their national beat writer. You know how many times crap officiating was mentioned? 0 times. The league's going to allow this to be forgotten relatively quickly.
It's interesting you say that because I type in Seahawks Rams into Google News, and the first one is a field goals article about how the NFL was ready to cancel the game.
Field goals.
Yeah. I'm just saying that was
okay.
I'm
talking like
no.
Try USA
okay.
Today.
Okay, I'll skip over the ones that I know are not national. Bleacher Report, Twitter calls out Seahawks Rams refs.
Right. So they don't even write an article about how bad the refs are. They said, here's people's tweets about the refs. Not right or wrong. Just, here's some tweets.
CBS Sports, it's all about Kupp. USA Today, referees miss blatant pass interference in Rams Seahawks game.
Hey, all right. One got it.
The Athletic, does the Athletic count?
Depends on who the writer is, because if it's Michael Sean, then no.
No. This is the Athletic staff.
What does that mean?
I don't know. A couple guys wrote it.
Do each one of them use one finger on the keyboard and they type the words together? Like, how do you do that?
Rams Cooper Kupp stave off Seahawks in controversial win to tie Cardinals for first in NFC West. I think that tried to cover some of it.
Yeah, okay. Cooper Kupp was definitely mentioned first.
It was a good game for him, though. How do you not cover that?
at all. Like Alvin Kamara. Like that's the part of Pete's resume where I'm like, get him the catfish gone.
You have one guy to stop, and you couldn't stop him.
But then you look at it on the other hand, and the defense only gave up 10 legitimate points while, giving Kupp all of whatever it is he got. So, I mean, the strategy worked.
Oh, the defense did its job. I thought when we went into this break, we were saying that we were done.
Bitter. Bitter. I'm so bitter about this.
I can tell. And hopefully it provides some level of therapy to those of you listening who have tuned in.
Well, I want to give everybody permission to actually complain about this in public to other people. Because 9 times out of 10, when we come on and we talk about refs, what do we say?
Oh yeah, it's not the refs.
Not
And
the
they
refs.
could have, they still had their opportunities.
They surely did. Surely did.
But it's okay to complain about the refs a little bit. Well, the refs and the NFL.
Without being a whiner or any of those things.
I wanted to see what was going to happen if, let's say, the Seahawks had some kind of outbreak. And what if it shifted between Sunday and Tuesday toward the Rams having, a relatively healthy group, say, they had 50 players who were all fine and could play. And then what if the Seahawks were the ones that, because they had kind of a mini outbreak, what if it exploded and then they couldn't suit up a bunch of people on Tuesday? Would they have shifted the game, or would they have made the Seahawks forfeit? Now, how wild would that have been if they pushed it to Tuesday and the forfeit went the other direction?
I can't believe that this is even a question in your mind.
Because I know the answer. Okay.
The idea that this would be wild at all would not be. That'd be par for the catfishing course.
I guess the reason why part of me was curious to see it happen would be to see if it would have been that blatant and how they would have tried to explain it away.
I would have loved to have seen the spin that went into that. That would have been fascinating.
I can understand the need to shift your policies based on how things are evolving in terms of, this is something new that we haven't seen.
No, we saw it all last year, and it was even in a more precarious position.
And when I say that we haven't seen, I mean I'm including last year as part of this being unusual, requiring policies to shift and that sort of thing. But to do it when they did it and to the level that they did, I'm still bitter. I'm trying to get over it. Okay. I'm a little bit bitter that you didn't make it down to Houston.
I'm bitter that I had to grind 6 wheels all by myself with no overhead crane to lift up all my stuff. And also to have a leaky roof over the entire mill that I was being rained on the entire time while I did that. I'm bitter that I had to go to a mill directly after that and took a grinding stone just above the catfish nads that about took my catfish nads off. I'm bitter about that too. I'm sick of this wheel grinding stuff. I think we need to do 2 or 3 podcasts a week. I'm legit ready to make that transition, I think.
Well, I think you would be better off giving up on the wheel grinding and making trips, because we had 4 new members of the flock that came in last week, and I had to put off reading their notes because you couldn't make the show last week, and I saved them for you, so you're welcome. And to those of you who came in that didn't get your notes read last week while Clinton was filling in,
big shout out to Clinton too.
Filled in nicely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that made life a lot easier. I appreciate Clinton so much for that.
So big thanks to our executive producers, DCH, Dustin Mock, Brian Shaw, and Kevin Watterson. I don't know if I told you this, Adam, but I was in the middle of an executive producer sandwich down in Houston, and it was a good time with DCH and Brian Shaw on either side of me.
That's actually pretty exciting, man. I don't know that I've ever been in an executive producer sandwich.
I don't think you have.
Is that what DK Metcalf calls a Thursday night?
I think so.
Okay.
Is it weird that this because things started off fine with Russ and DK this season?
They're still fine.
Yeah, I feel like since the DK event, things just haven't been the same between Russ and DK.
I think Russ can't throw the ball, or up until recently couldn't throw the ball as accurately as normal. The play calling hasn't been great. And DK is frustrated because people are concentrating on him. And DK hasn't been doing everything he can do to make sure that this season goes smoothly. I mean, he's dropped a lot of important balls as well. So
sure, you're conspiracy minded when it comes to the NFL and the Seahawks and the Rams winning, but you don't even want to go there when it comes to Russ and DK's relationship and sandwiches.
I guess I'll put it to you this way. When they asked Russ in the presser, after this game about him and DK and the frustration and all that, like Brittany was watching too, and she's like, I can't stand listening to these guys. They all say the same thing. I'm like, yeah, but you don't watch it to hear what they say. You listen to it to hear how they say it. And he started talking about the relationship with DK and just the way that he said it. I mean, he was so just like, are you catfishing kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, me and DK are boys. Like, we are fine.
Yeah.
You guys stop it.
Well, thanks to our executive producers, another member of the flock coming in to be an executive producer for the month because Dr. G came in with an annual donation, $145.44. That's $12.12 a month for the year. And Dr. G, I got to meet him down in Houston. He says, fellas,
awesome, dude.
I need to cleanse my chakra. I selfishly extended my freeloading period into this season, and the season went down in shambles. I apologize to all my fellow Seahawks fans and little flockers for ruining the season, but I can only hope sweeping the 49ers have helped cope with the pain. What better time to join the flock than when the Seahawks come to my neighborhood on 12/12? Looking forward to meet y'all in Houston. Catfish! The 49ers. Catfish! The Rams. Catfish! The Cardinals. Oh, did I say catfish? The Rams? Well, there you go. Catfish! The Rams. Go Hawks.
Yeah. Yeah. Dr. G, man, don't worry about your portion of the blame pie. There are plenty of slices to go around, dude. Like, some of this feels like my fault, too. I don't know. We'll get it figured out, though.
We definitely need to do another trip to where Dr. G gets to come to a game because we had a blast hanging out. We got to be Bengals fans together at one of the bars that we went to as the Bengals were playing the 49ers, and that went into overtime. It didn't work out very well being a Bengals fan for that period of time, but yeah, Dr. G was there. Tim Moon and his family was there. Chris Boucher and his brother and buddy were there. And then, we had DCH, of course, and Aaron Fisher was there, and Brian DeLude and his wife, Maureen, they were there too. So, yeah, it was a good...
Nice, dude. That's
good
awesome.
Oh, and gosh, I didn't realize the Cole family was there, and I didn't get to meet up with them. That was kind of a bummer. I'm always bummed about the people that were down there and I didn't get to run into.
Right.
But I suppose it'll happen.
Yeah. Well, if I hadn't have been a loser and showed up, then you would have had backup. We could have divided and conquered, you know?
We could have. One of us could have hung out at the tailgate a little bit longer. DCH and I, we wanted to go in and watch warm-ups. And I think that's when we ended up missing people at the tailgate.
Gotcha.
Scott Harrion came in at $3, said, I started my contribution again for your show. Hope that clears my chakra. Out of all the Seahawks podcasts I listen to, yours is the best knowledgeable podcast I listen to. He gets into some other shows and some other hosts. I don't need to call him out, but
I got it publicly, but I'd like to see the email later. Just forward that.
Yes, I will forward it to you just because I know you want to read it. But
because I'm petty.
So, and then Scott gives his thoughts. If they want to make a change, who do you want them to do? I think definitely keep Russ and Pete. Whoever's the one who picks draft picks, however, maybe it's John. If it is, maybe we should move on from him. If it's Pete, then Jody Allen needs to tell Pete to do his job and stop trying to do John's job. For those who are reporting on the trade rumors of Russ, do better.
Hey, man, I agree. I think right now, the leader in the clubhouse for me is Pete.
I wasn't there so much at the beginning of the year, but I've gradually moved to that point too.
Yeah, the same, man. And honestly, we all know the heads have to roll this offseason. They have to.
But if Russ somehow wants to keep Pete around and they think that, I don't know, I could see a scenario where those two come back together. In fact, one of the things
I don't think so.
I meant to bring it up with you earlier because because Florio has been on the whole trade Russ bandwagon in terms of the media.
I looked it up. And Mike Florio wrote an article about the Seahawks trading Russ 3 days before Russell Wilson was even born. He was already starting to hype that.
the thing was, he started to walk it back this week. He was like, now maybe the scenario is that Russ had such a bad season that he wants to stay in Seattle and, resurrect his image after this terrible season. Doesn't that seem weird that that's the reason why you would walk it back? Like, if you were that sure that Russ was gone after that season, because he has been so sure that this is Russell Wilson's last season in Seattle, why would you even start to walk that back? Why would not just stick to what you've been talking about all year?
Yeah, if you had the kind of conviction that he has seemed to have regarding the subject of trading Russ up to this point, if you've had that kind of conviction, that's a weak way to kind of walk it back. However, if you separate those two things, Florio, and then that reasoning of why Russ may want to be back, I think that's a perfectly logical line of reasoning, that Russ doesn't want to go out like that. That's not the way he'd want to leave his legacy, which is his word that he uses all the time. So I think there's something to that. Now, for Florio to use it feels weak sauce, because at that point, stating he's basically on the plane and leaving for 2 years, and be like, well, I don't know, maybe he just
wouldn't. He would have been gone if he hadn't got injured. Kelsey Anderson came in at $3 a month. Welcome to the flock to Kelsey. And a welcome to the flock to Michael Valdivia, who came in at $5 a month.
Dude, appreciate you guys a ton. That's the sort of stuff that encourages me to want to do more podcasting and do more shows and maybe...
And go on more trips.
Well, to be honest, I want to go on less trips. That's why I want to get out of the wheel grinding thing. I am sick and tired of traveling. But it would be great to kind of move that direction. So love to hear you guys' feedback on that. Like, what sort of things would you like to see or hear Brandon and I do? Like, how many shows a week do you think it would take to really kind of grow this? Do we do another show that's just more NFL centric? Do I succumb to the fantasy people and do a fantasy podcast? Because apparently they get a zillion listeners. Like, what do we do here?
I would like to hear feedback on that, actually.
Nobody knows better than the little flockers.
Do I give up doing all these press conference shows on field goals to do more shows with just me and Adam?
Easy, buddy.
I
don't want to kill your joy.
I'm saying I don't have unlimited time. I have to.
Are we sure?
I wish I did.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate our members of the flock, and you should go to tinypiecesofseahawkstuff.com. One of the ways we show our appreciation is by giving away a little tiny piece of Seahawks stuff. We got Russell Wilson, Rashad Penny, and Doug Baldwin all on one card, all with a little tiny piece of Seahawks jersey on it. And, another thing we do for the flock, giving away tickets. Seahawks, Bears. If you want to go to the game, if you have a special occasion, maybe you want to gift tickets to somebody.
There you go.
Yeah, hit me up at getintheflock.com or shoot me an email at gohawks@seahawkerspodcast.com. And we generally defer to our members of the flock first. But if you have a special occasion and you want to make something special happen for someone, let me know.
Yeah, we'll make that happen. And look, it's still fun to go. The whole experience is still a great time.
Have I had any bad times? I think it's generally been good.
It's generally been good. I've had one really bad weather event. It was
right.
Yeah, where it poured buckets, which was kind of miserable. But other than that,
it poured buckets and the Seahawks lost. But yeah. But these tickets are undercover, so you don't even have to worry about the weather.
Dude, those seats are so nice. I've never even sat in them for a full game yet.
One of these days.
One of these days.
We got, and so we got Bears tickets and we got Lions tickets.
Oh, cool.
And you can always hit us up as well via email, gohawks@seahawkerspodcast.com. Pick'em League. We've got to talk a little Pick'em League. I will say, though, that with the Pick'em League this week, Adam, I as frustrated as I am, this would be the week to take out some frustration.
Yeah.
Because so help me, if we had members of the flock picking the Rams, I think it would have been
a burn it situation for you.
I have that. I feel like I need to do something just to make myself feel better. And I don't know. I don't know what that is quite yet. But I do see that rock out with your Hawks out. got 12 picks correct this week after taking zeros for 3 weeks. See, this is why you hang in there and get the win.
Yeah.
So help me if you pick the Rams. I'm going to check this out. Okay. Before I check into it, I need flowers to Wags My Dixon. Oh, that's Brian. Brian Delude, who I hung out with. 143 points, leading the league.
Rigged.
Probably. I kind of want to rig it for him, though, since I got to meet him in person. He seems like
that's
cool
why
dude.
I was saying it was rigged. It was clear.
Well, if there's somebody I'm going to rig it for, it's going to be someone who made the trip down to Houston and hung out for the game.
No, absolutely. You do what you want, buddy.
Just like Roger Goodell thinks that it's his NFL. Like, I get to do the things. Israeli Hawks at number 2, Tuga Hawk tied as well, 142 points. Unlimited Hawkra as well. Those are your top 4. And here we go. We got to see if anybody took the top spot by being dirty. Wait a second. Are there 2 rock out with your Hawks out? I didn't realize this until just now. There's rock out with your Hawks out, and there's rock out with your Hawk out.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And so it's rock out with your Hawks, plural, out that got the Week 15 win. And they correctly picked the Seahawks. So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah, rock out with your Hawk out is Jason Bonnert, and I think Garrett is Hawks plural. So congrats to Garrett. See, Garrett knows. He's been with us long enough that he knows not to pick against the Seahawks.
There you go.
Well, congratulations, Garrett, with the Week 15 win.
Yeah. Goodbye him. I mean, it's the little things in life right now, right, that feel a little extra nice with the Seahawks having a losing season. Like, winning a little pick'em. That's got to feel good.
It's got to feel good. On to do better and better at life.
All right, man. My do better for this week. Well, it's for the league because I just see this new article that pops up here on field goals that John P. Gilbert put out, and they're already starting to cover the tracks. So maybe we can start to call it a conspiracy because report NFL was ready to cancel Seahawks Rams game until NFLPA stepped in. I don't know if the NFLPA felt both axles go over their back when the league started to leak this stuff, but you can totally tell they're now trying to blame it on anything but the league office and their own wants and ambitions. And basically they did what you brought up earlier on, Brandon, was they blamed the whole thing on the idea that, well, they neither would get paid. Neither side would get paid. And that's the reason. So if you have a problem with it, it's just, we wanted the players to get paid. So we just moved it. So to yet another blatant lie coming out of the league office and misdirection, I hate the NFL right now so much. Do better.
If they were truly concerned about player health and safety to the point where they couldn't play a game because players came down with some sort of, there was an outbreak, the game couldn't go on. If they were truly concerned, they would say, okay, well, there's extenuating circumstances. The players get paid anyway, and the game just has to be canceled. We just have to eat that money. Yes, it stinks, but it's, the players' health comes first, and we can't allow the virus to spread.
Hey, and if you had any question as to how greedy the owners are and how much they love their revenue sharing, there's your answer right there. They're going to make the players eat it if everybody got sick, not the billionaire owners. And it's hard to root, when you're, taking either multi-thousandaires or millionaires and comparing them to billionaires, be like, oh, well, I mean, they all have it good, blah, blah, blah. Well, all right. That might be true to a point, but I can tell you, being a billionaire is exponentially more money than being even a millionaire or a multi-millionaire.
Well, and one of the reasons why it bugs me so much when news organizations, they say, well, fans, they're siding with ownership. No, we're just team. I want my team to be awesome. It's not necessarily that we're siding with the billionaires over the millionaires. We want our teams to be good.
Yep, exactly. That's it. That's all. It's just unfortunate watching this whole thing play out, but I guess it is what it is at this point. Who you got for do better?
My do better is for the Around the NFL podcast. I don't know. Have you listened to the show lately?
I listened to an episode 2 weeks ago.
It is almost unbearable, the amount of ads they have. Speaking of the amount of money that the NFL has and can do better with how it uses it, they have crammed so many ad breaks into that one show now. It is brutal. I don't mind having to skip, with a little ad skip ahead button once or twice in the middle of any one show. Like, that doesn't necessarily bother me.
No more than 3 ads.
No more than 3 ads, and also no more than 1 middle ad. 2 middle ad. I'll give you 2. You can have 2 middle ad breaks in an hour and a half show, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But it's getting over the top. It's almost it's probably like 4. It's beyond my ability to think about how many it is that there's so many. And it's getting to the point where I don't tune in to listen to that, and I know I can skip ahead, but it just, especially for as long as I've listened to that show, it's getting to the point where it feels gross. And around the NFL folks, the higher ups, because we know it's not the guys doing the show, it is coming from the folks upstairs,
the suits.
Yes, the suits. To them, do better.
Yeah, I hadn't listened to that show for a long time, but listened to it on this last trip, and that was jarring. The difference in that, it was like, holy cow, when did this pop into here, Yeah.
When did they start throwing to so many ads?
Ordinarily I see keep getting them checks, but again, it's the NFL. Come on, man.
I'm with you to an extent, because obviously they were doing just fine before with how they had it worked out, with how our sponsorships were worked in there. I feel like you probably don't need to milk every last dollar out of it.
No, it's annoying, and I hope everybody bears with us when I try to sell our souls here for doing all that stuff in the next 6 months so I could stop grinding wheels.
I would put my money where my mouth is too. If SB Nation if SB Nation came to me and said, hey, these 3 in 3 out shows that you do with Clinton, we want 4 ad breaks, I would say I'm out. I wouldn't do it.
Nah, sorry. Nah.
But again, that's not my career, so I suppose I have that flexibility.
Yeah, exactly.
And why having control over the show yourself is important.
Super important. I think it's great. It's been awesome for our deal, and that's how I hope we're able to move forward.
On to Better at Life.
All right, my Better at Life this week is for 70-year-old Donna Sanguinario.
Nailed it.
She lives in Massachusetts, and just recently was out putting up Christmas lights on her house. And I'll read to you what ensued from there.
All right.
So as the 70-year-old is putting up her Christmas lights, she, quote, hears strange noises coming from the street. I turned around to see what the noise was, and I was staring at a huge raccoon about 10 feet away. Before I could do anything, it jumped at me. Worst nightmare of my life. Both me and the raccoon were screaming so loud. She said, I was then screaming for help, and he fell on my arm, but jumped right back on me to continue attacking her. Thing just catfish jumped her and started attacking her, right? After somehow tumbling to the ground, I got him in a headlock and wouldn't let go. She went full MMA and choked him out to save herself from a crazy raccoon attack. She said once the animal fell silent, she let go, only to see it get up and walk away. She choked out a super raccoon at 70 years old out in the snow. This gal, Miss Sanguinario, she's amazing. Better at life than Skip Bayless.
That raccoon is never going to screw with another human because of her.
Let alone an older person.
Heck yeah.
Can you imagine at 70 getting into a bare knuckle brawl with a freaking giant raccoon?
No, I can't imagine it at 40.
Yeah, they're gnarly, dude.
They are. I wouldn't want to mess with one.
She tried to crush its neck.
I mean, that's one way to do it.
That's hard, dude.
Did she? Has she spent? She was in the Marines. She had military time.
She invented the Marines.
Incredible. Well, speaking of incredible people, it's my 20th anniversary this week. 20th wedding anniversary. So I have to give it up to my wife, Emily. She is my better at life than Skip Bayless this week. That's an understatement. I feel like it's not even good enough. But
dude, I
20 years.
want to be honest. If I'm gonna balance out like 20 years worth of credit and blame pie, I think your slice of credit pie is probably pretty small and your blame pie is pretty high. So I'm saying that she is absolutely better at life than Skip Bayless for making this work for 20 years with you. That's got to be hard to do. I mean, I've been basically doing it for 20 years with you.
Basically, yeah. I mean,
30 anyways.
And somehow we've made that work, right? So
yeah. I mean, I'm also better at life too, but definitely your wife more so.
Well, you know what? Once we get to doing this show for 20 years, then I'm going to reserve that better at life slot for you. But for now, giving it to my wife.
Yeah, she is a saint. There's no doubt about it.
Also, want to thank our members of the flock. I think we've gone a couple weeks now without recognizing our $12 members and above. So why don't we hit that right now? Go down the list, run through all the people who we want to thank here, especially going into the holidays.
Keith Ketover, a.k.a. Flocktimus Prime, University of Cybertron, Little Flockers, Roll Out.
DCH from Sparks, Nevada, the University of Montana Grizzlies.
Eric Trench, rooting for the Seahawks out of Renton, Washington, graduated from Eastern Washington University.
Jameson Holman from Murray, Utah, representing Mississippi State University. Hail State and go Hawks.
Gary Blum from Chappaqua, New York, and the University of Pennsylvania, your 2016 Pick'em League champion.
Ron Pepper, UNLV Runnin' Rebels, San Francisco, California.
Hong Kong! Hong Kong! Hong Kong!
Ella Esparza, Woodway, Texas, Yale University, and Sam Houston State, Eat 'em Up Cats.
Lisa in Seattle.
Samuel Gelber, NoHo, California.
David Van Cleve, Camas, Washington, home of the Papermakers.
Leo Jose, Luleå, Sweden, from Luleå Eskimos and Vancouver Front.
Paul from San Diego.
Aaron Fisher, a.k.a. Lock It and Put It in Your Pocket, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Hey Seahawkers, my name is Garen Taylor. I live in one of the most beautiful places in the world, North Idaho. Hashtag on the Rose. Go Hawks.
And continuing down the list of $12 supporters and above, starting with executive producers Brian and Dustin. We've also got Christina in Manassas, Virginia, Craig in Camas, Roe in Federal Way, James in Linwood, Sven in Berlin, Deutschland, Young in Anchorage, Jared in Missoula, Hector in Issaquah, Becca in Manhattan Beach, California, Tim in Austin, Christian in Oslo, Norway, Kathy in Eureka, Jeremiah in the Bronx, Joshua in Seven Oaks, England, Brandon in Huntersville, North Carolina, Jonathan in Ridgefield, Chris in Spokane, Kevin in Onaway, Idaho, Mitchell in El Dorado Hills, California, James in Beau Arts, Jake in Seattle, Pepper in Greenville, South Carolina, JC in Horsford, England, Keegan in Colorado Springs, Jeffrey in Kansas City, Kari in Rochester, Brian in Berlin, Connecticut, Connie in Gothenburg, Sweden, Tracy in Kaneohe, Hawaii, Taylor in South Cle Elum, Ewolf in Seattle, Marvin in Riverdale, Utah, Dean in the Greater Hawkdom, Kevin in Surrey, BC, Glenn in Ocoee, Florida, John C. in the Greater Hawkdom, John W. in New York, another executive producer, Kevin, Shoko in New York, Scott in Bakersfield, Patrick in Sacramento, Bryson in Eltopia, Greg in Seattle, Jeremy in Federal Way, Jay in Monroe, Josh in Candor, New York, Ivy in Renton, Kenneth in Hutto, Texas, Flopster in Clovis, California, Mario in Seattle, Cora in Ditters, Deutschland, Anders in Vila, Denmark, Rafe in Beaverton, Oregon, Warren in Dundee, Oregon, Chris in Austin, Amy in Squim, Preston in Phoenix, Marcus in Potts Point, Australia, Richard in Killeen, Texas, Marlon in the Greater Hawkdom, Norma in the Greater Hawkdom, Joseph in Vancouver, Corey in Vancouver, Taylor in Spokane, Kyle in the Greater Hawkdom, Ryan in Salt Lake City, Dan in the Greater Hawkdom, Kevin in Great Glen, England, Chris in Billings, Montana, DJ in Menifee, California, Joshua in the Greater Hawkdom, Jamie in Oswestry, England, Jalen in Minneapolis, Kansas. Terrence in Seattle. Eugene in Henderson, Nevada. Daniel in Post Falls, Idaho. Jerv in Bristow, Virginia. Ian in Seattle. Eric in Kalispell, Montana. Jason in Panama City, Florida. Johnny D in Silverton, Oregon. Julio in Mililani, Hawaii. Kayla in Vancouver. Tanner in Kalispell, Montana. Chad in Lexington Park, Maryland. Bridget in Redmond. Joanna in Chesterfield, Virginia. Brian in Omak. Jeff in Gilbert, Arizona. Gordon in Whitefish, Montana. Ryan in Crestview, Florida. Dr. G in League City, Texas. Ryan in Fairbanks. Nate in Solna, Sweden. Devontae in Boise, Idaho. Sean in Cascade, Iowa via Kalispell. Leland Hawks in South Jordan, Utah. And Juice in David City, Nebraska. Thanks once again. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. We got a new year coming up as well. Yes, it's been a little bit of a rough season. It's been a lot of a rough season for all of us. But this doesn't happen too often. We're, first losing season of Russell Wilson's career. And here we are.
So, yeah, the next time somebody's giving you crap about anything, especially if it's a Niners fan, shoot, a Rams fan, a Cardinals fan, any one of the stupid four racka, and they're like, oh, well, you had a losing season this year. Yeah, it was like, buy a game or two under 500. Not like the number one pick in the draft kind of seasons you guys have had in the past. Because when you guys suck, you genuinely suck. And when you don't suck, it's because the league loves you. Merry Christmas, you bastards. And that's all I would have to say to them.
And with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
I encapsulates how encapsulates.
There it is.
Encapsulates